right, welcome back. When your favorite star heads for court, you can't help but wonder if they'll get the star treatment when they go before a judge, right? Well, we wonder the same thing, so we've assembled a panel of television judges to get their thoughts on the most recent batch of bad behavior that's landing so many celebs in court. So, in Miami, we have Judge Alex Ferrer. Maybe you know him from television's Judge Alex show. He's also a former Florida Circuit Court judge. In Chicago, we have Greg Mathis. He presides over the Judge Mathis show. He is a former high school dropout who ended up presiding over a district court in Michigan. And also in Miami, the newest kid on the block, so to speak, or on the bench, Judge David Young. His TV show is called, maybe you guessed it, the Judge David Young Show. How did David Young, the new guy, actually get his entire name into the title there, you guys? You guys are the veterans. How'd that happen?
I'm going to have to renegotiate my contract when it comes up. I want my whole name there.
And David wants to remind everybody that he's young. That's frankly based on her performance in the Video Music Awards. I would order her to get a real skill trade.
Judge Ferrer, what do you think about what you've heard about Brittany from her former bodyguard and what Dr. Drew said and others?
Well, it's very worrisome. Of course, from a judge's perspective, you're concerned about the welfare of the children. Frankly, judges all over the country are looking at this saying, I've got 100 cases like her and I've got 200 that are worse. Probably the saddest thing about being in family court is that sometimes you're looking at a little girl and you're looking at the parents and you're thinking, this child would be better off raised by wolves, but I've got to give it the custody to one of these parents or both parents. So I think that they are absolutely correct that there's a huge degree of risk here, and ultimately, maybe a contact with the criminal justice system is the only thing that's going to get her on the right track when a judge actually orders her into therapy.
Judge Young, let me ask you a question. Judge Ferrer, do you agree with Judge Mathis on this one?
I do agree with you, and sadly, I like Kiefer. I'm sorry to see him in this position, but the reality is his biggest problem isn't his second DUI. His biggest problem is that it's a probation violation. Because when a judge puts somebody on probation, they're saying, I'm trusting you when you say this is an aberration, it's not going to happen again. And when you violate your probation, your problem is not the mandatory jail sentence for the second DUI, which under California law is frankly quite small. Your problem is the probation violation, which is going to result in a significant amount of jail time. So unless his case is weak, it's a big problem. And when you look at it, the $50 cab ride or $100 cab ride, when you look at what happens the morning after a DUI, when you have thousands in bail money, thousands in lawyers' fees, thousands in increased insurance costs, it's a small bargain.
Well, look what happened to Paris Hilton. I mean, she violated her probation, but she wasn't even drinking and driving, so you can only imagine. And by the way, the judge in 2004 who said
that would send them to jail for a lot longer than 30 days.
Yeah, but we have no room here, so that's the problem here, Judge Mathis. Judge Ferrer, let me ask you a question about O.J. Simpson and the alleged robbery debacle that would happen. Seems to be a number of unsavory characters in all of this. Whom do you believe in your courtroom when they stand up and tell you what happened?
First of all, let me start by saying that O.J. lives not too far from my house. I'll be very careful on what I say at this point. But the reality is that there is no hard or fast rule on who you believe. You have to listen to every witness. You have to evaluate their credibility while you're observing their demeanor. You have to take into account the motives they may have for lying. I mean, there are a lot of things in this case that are just strange. The whole taping of every conversation really makes it look like a setup. Doesn't excuse what he did. If you commit the crime because somebody, planted in your head, hey, it'd be a great idea to rob the bank, you still rob the bank. But when you're having to convince a jury that they should convict this guy, anything that chips away and builds sympathy for him is dangerous for the prosecution. To their credit, O.J.'s not as liked today as he was before.
Judge David, let me ask you, you are openly gay. You're on